Hello, this is Sarah Ermetti, and the following discussion is on creating a resume for higher education, taking advantage of your military experience. Let's start with what the purpose of a resume is. Think of it as a marketing tool. What you are doing is marketing how your qualifications, your experiences, your education, your certifications, your background directly relates to the position you are applying to. So the first step is to make sure you thoroughly read the job posting and think through what your background is directly relating to that posting, and then make sure that your resume clearly addresses how you meet the needs of their position. A resume is meant to inform the employer how you are qualified for the position. If you want to think about this in a strategic manner, the resume comes down to how well you dissect that job posting and address how your experience and skills match what the employer is seeking. You want to be very clear. You don't want them to have to search for information, and you don't want them to have to make any assumptions. It's the ability to showcase your knowledge, your skills, and your abilities in one document. Usually they're 2 pages maximum. Knowledge, skills, and abilities are also commonly known as your KSAs. It allows you to provide an overview of your experience, introduction of who you are to whoever is reading that resume. It highlights your accomplishments. So don't think of your bullets in your resume of just a listing of your job duties, but also think about what did you accomplish? What did you achieve? What sets you apart from others that might have the same background and experiences? It serves as an initial introduction of you to the organization's hiring officials. It's the first critical step towards securing employment by getting that interview. Regardless of what format you use, there are some key points that should go into every resume. First, it needs to showcase to the employer that you have the experience, education, and unique skill set required to perform the responsibilities of their opening. You want to create a strong resume, but every position that you apply to, you want to customize it. It's important that you edit your resume for each position so that you can ensure that you have highlighted those skills and experiences that directly relate to their opening. Your resume is telling the reader your story of how your background matches, aligns with their need. Job postings have keywords and phrases. Make sure that you're including those in your resume. As long as they align with your experience, you're just using their language. So when they're quickly reading your resume, already they're looking at, they understand what we do. You've already aligned yourself with their posting. Take advantage of using power verbs like collaborate, managed, led. This link here will give you a list of wonderful power verbs that you can include in your resume. Hiring officials will spend mere seconds, 6, maybe 10, scanning resumes. You could be applying to a position for 10 that 10 other people have applied to, or a couple hundred. They don't have time at first to read thoroughly every resume. So they're just quickly scanning that first page to look at your background and do you have what they're needing. They're going to have 2 piles. They're going to have those that have screened in that meet at least in those 6 to 10 seconds their need, and those that just don't. Then they'll spend more time reading more in depth your resume. But that first 6 to 10 seconds is where you need to grab their attention right away. By using keywords and phrases from the posting, by looking at incorporating power verbs, it's also telling them that you've read their job description, you know a little bit about their organization, and you're now telling them your story of how you fit and why you should be interviewed. Some resume basics. Resumes should be 2 pages maximum. They should be focused to every position. In that quick glancing, that 6 to 10 seconds, there are some fonts that are proven to be a little easier on the eye to read. Garamond, Arial, Tahoma, Gill Sans, and Georgia. And your font size can be between 10 and 12, depending on which font you use. Make the headings larger. I suggest making the headings your employer and your position in bold and the rest in regular font. pages. I like to number them. Most people aren't going to print them, but in case somebody does, they'll know if you number them 1 of 2, 2 of 2, that there's 2 pages. I would suggest creating a Gmail dedicated to your job search. So only things related to your job search go to that email, nothing else. First name, last name at gmail.com is a quick, easy one to use. I would suggest in the header on the second page, put your name and your email. Most employers are going to reach out to you via email first. So it's important that they can find your email quickly. Again, use action power verbs. Use short, concise sentences. They don't need to be in full sentence format. Use bullets under each position to talk about your accomplishments and your achievements in quantitative form. Think about what you've done in your career that have helped an employer in dollars, in numbers, or in percentages. Lastly, every position that appeals to you that you apply to, I would suggest downloading and saving those postings for referencing later. So let's say you're called for an interview, you can pull that job posting back up because it's probably no longer going to be active on their website. You can use that to prepare for your interview. And just a nice reminder of what the position details were. There are 3 basic formats. Chronological resume. Your employment history is highlighted, starting with the most recent position and then going back in time. It includes your responsibilities and accomplishments under each separate job. The functional resume, your skills are highlighted. Your work history and gaps are de-emphasized. So skills and accomplishments are divided into specific areas of expertise. So you may start with your contact information at the top and a summary, and maybe you'll have those key or core strengths. But then instead of going straight into your work experience, you would have categories. For example, you may choose to list management and then bullets relating to your management background, or purchasing and those bullets relating to that. That'd be, for example, if you're applying to a purchasing position. Combination resume, then, your skills that you earned in a variety of jobs are highlighted, but you're using a job history format. Your specific skills will form the main body of the resume, followed by a concise employment history. As you're transitioning from the military into civilian positions, you may not be sure exactly what goes into different occupations, or does your background truly fit particular positions? By using onetonline.org, you can learn about different occupations and the knowledge, skills, and abilities that are required. At the very end, I will have the link to ONET, but when you look up purchasing manager, for example, it will talk to you about a summary of what a purchasing manager does and other job titles to look for as you're searching. It'll talk about the tasks, the technology skills, and the work activities of a purchasing manager, and it'll also then drill down into the KSAs that are required to perform that particular position. So ONET is a great resource just to learn about different occupations and what the requirements are. Next, you want to look at military jargon. When you're looking at civilian jobs, those reading your resume may not understand things that are typical verbiage in the military. So there are 2 websites there at the bottom that I've listed. And again, they're on the last page, the resource page. Things like commanded. A civilian resume might use supervise or directed. Subordinates, soldiers, service members. In the civilian world, we would look at employees, coworkers, colleagues. So you'll see a listing of what may be typically used in the military versus what a hiring official or recruiter is going to want to see in a civilian resume. So these 2 links at the bottom of this slide, and again, you'll see them at the very end, may be very helpful for you in looking at, well, what verbiage should I be using? What I'd like to do for the rest of this discussion is actually talk about a chronological formatted resume. So the top of the resume, in a header or just at the top of the page, should be your contact information, your name, and how to reach you. So email and phone. Some people do like to put full address, some just city, state, some just state. If you're looking to relocate, I would suggest just name, phone, and email. Next would be your summary. This isn't your objective, but it's a 3 to 5 statement in a paragraph form of what your overall career strengths are. It's telling the story of, this is what I bring to the employer. And again, this should be modified, edited, tweaked as necessary to match each particular job posting. And I'll show you an example in a moment. Then you're going to talk about your key strengths and core expertise. This could be in 1 to 2 word phrases in bullet form spaced evenly across the page. And again, look at that job posting to determine, well, what skills and abilities are they requiring that you have, and make sure those are front and center. You may also instead prefer to look at bulleted form of key accomplishments or achievements. So those are just one-line sentences in a bullet form of key accomplishments. And again, make sure they relate to the position. So you can do either way in this particular section, either bulleted key strengths, core expertise, or a bulleted list 3 to 4 key accomplishments. Then you go right into your work experience. On the left margin, your employer name and job title in bold. On the right margin is your dates of employment. And then underneath the employer and job title in regular font are the bullets of what you bring to that employer. Again, make sure they align with the job posting. Look at your background in terms of what have you done for that employer that affected positively their numbers, their percentages, or their dollars. Keep bullets evenly spaced among all your positions. So you don't want to have 3 in one job and then 20 in another. They don't have to be identical, but just make sure there's some evenness in the number of bullets you use. Then you're going to talk about your education and your certifications. When you start thinking about crafting that resume, you may want to ask a few questions on how to identify, well, what are my accomplishments? So questions you could ask are, have you received awards, special recognition, or promotions? Have you developed a new system or procedure? Have you identified and resolved a problem that others either didn't see or couldn't resolve? Have you been involved in a team effort that produced a specific result? Have you reduced cost or increased revenue for your employer? Have you helped others achieve their goals through your leadership skills? And then, have you helped improve communications or relationships between groups? So those might be some good preliminary questions to ask yourself to help you start thinking about your career thus far and what your accomplishments were that you can start putting into your new resume. So let's look at that summary. So again, it is a summary, it's an overview of the totality of your career and what you bring to that employer. So I'll give you a few moments to read this particular sample. It is not an objective statement, but it is something you want to modify and edit for each position. On this slide, I want to give a few examples of how you can write either your core or key strengths, or if you'd prefer to write a key accomplishment or achievement more in a sentence format. So one idea, after you have your summary, which is more in a paragraph format, allow the reader to very quickly now see your core strengths in a very short bullet format, evenly spaced across the page. Here I've given you examples, and you can call this core strengths, key strengths, core expertise. There's lots of different ways to frame this particular section. What you want to do, just like you're writing your bullets for each position, is make sure you're pulling from each job position. So pull what the strengths, the key expertise, the core expertise they're looking for that you have. Make sure that's what they see. So these are some random bullets that I pulled out. I like 9 evenly spaced across the page. Just, again, make sure they match what the position is. Or you may rather write it as some key accomplishments or key achievements that you've made. You can do that one of 2 ways. You can actually label it cost savings, and then speak to 1 line, maybe 2 at most, what you did relating to a cost savings in one of your positions. Or you can just simply write variety of accomplishments. You don't have to actually label what they are. Again, try to not only pull from your entire history, but also think about, well, what fits or what could match this particular position. And then you move into your experience. You want to make sure your experience links to each job posting. What did you do? How did you do it? What were the outcomes? Looking at quantitative accomplishments in the form of numbers, percentages, and dollars. And I've given you a number of examples. If you've earned medals and awards, certainly list those, but also think about listing and documenting the experiences that earned the medal. So not just the medal itself, but what did you do? What was your skill, your achievement, your accomplishment that earned you that medal or gave you that recognition? When you're speaking of education and certifications, and that comes after your work experience, it depends on how you want your resume to look. You may choose to create a heading that is both education and certifications. I would suggest if you just have 2 or 3 combined, you may choose a combined heading. But if you have a couple degrees and a couple certifications, I would suggest creating 2 different sections, an education section and then a certification section. Again, so the reader easily sees what your background was. They aren't having to search or read through a lot of paragraphs. And then other sections you may wish to include in your resume are technical computer skills. You also could put that in your summary. You also could put that in your key or core strengths area. Languages and proficiency, again, that could also go up in the first 2 sections. Community involvement and volunteerism, I would certainly put that last on your resume. Any security clearances, and again, any medals and awards. So this was a brief introduction to crafting a resume for higher ed, utilizing your military experience. Here are some resources that I think are very useful for you. The HERC website does offer a number of other webinars and articles, and the ebook, if you download that, it actually has several sample formats for your resume. Thank you very much for listening and watching.